A girl named Alina saw the same dream every time, which seemed so real. However, she knew perfectly well that this was some other world in which she had never been before. There she saw that a girl with bright red hair was being prepared for beheading. This girl screamed. Everyone called her a traitor, but she only said the phrase lie for lie, truth for truth. After that, they simply took her head and cut it off, and Alina immediately woke up. The maid who was in the room at the time said that she had to attend breakfast with the Marquis that day, so she should prepare. Alina was a beautiful young girl, the daughter of a senior family. She had blonde hair and purple eyes. The maid asked if the girl could wash and dress herself, but Alina only asked for help because she was afraid of being late. However, the maid was not kind to the girl, so she said that, thanks to the Marquise, she already had a lot, so she did not help her. But at that moment, a fair-haired man entered the room. It was the first son of the family. His name was Gabriel. He turned to the maid and asked why she refused to help, whether she had much more important things to do than look after her mistress. When Gabriel passed by the maid, he said that she should have been polite, otherwise he would have deprived her of her little island tongue. The girl immediately bowed, asked for forgiveness, and said that she was wrong, and also that she admitted her guilt. Then Gabriel turned to his sister and asked her if she knew that they were supposed to have breakfast together. The girl, getting out of bed, said that this was indeed the case, and she was already getting ready. Gabriel offered her his help. Despite the fact that Alina said that she could handle it herself, he still stayed there and helped her. When the girl was already dressed, he combed her hair and asked if she had slept poorly, since she was so pale. The girl lowered her head and said that it was nothing serious. She was just a little worried. Her brother smiled and said, "I understand that you are afraid that your father will be angry with you again, but you don't need to worry." He assured her that he would always be there and would not let anyone hurt her, and also said that she should have believed him because he would definitely not set her up. After this motivational talk, Alina took the guy by the hand, and they went to her father because he was already waiting for them. As soon as they went down to the dining room, the head of the family, Ismael, was sitting there. He greeted his children and looked quite serious. Alina greeted him immediately, but called him Marquis. The man did not like this because he had already asked her to call him father more than once. Then she asked him for forgiveness and called him father as well. Ismael said that when she was supposed to become a master of souls and go out into the world, it was absolutely necessary to call him that way. He was quite a proud girl, because with her ability to descend with souls, she could become an outstanding soulcaster. Then he asked if she could already see souls. The girl was very worried. Her hands began to shake with fear. Her brother, noticing this, immediately calmed her down and told father that Alina had tried so far. She could not see them, but it was hard for her, so he asked the man not to blame her for everything. Of course, Ismael was angered by all this. He took a knife and threw it straight towards the girl, saying that she was useless, and since up to this moment she had not had any results. He didn't understand when she was supposed to see the shower and become a spellcaster, but he wanted it to happen sooner, because for 6 years she hadn't managed it. And if he had known that everything was supposed to turn out this way, he wouldn't have even taken her. In fact, Alina really was an orphan who was picked up by the Marquis. In their world, even orphans had to pass a test for the ability to communicate with spirits, because it was a very important ability. And when the test was passed, the man who checked the grades saw that Alina had an incredibly huge score. He looked at the little girl in tattered clothes and all frozen. Then the senior commander approached him and asked if the calculations were wrong. They argued among themselves for some time. Then Alina turned to the man and asked if this was really a good result. The man immediately smiled and said, "Of course, the more points you have, the more powerful a spellcaster you can become." When they asked how old she was and where her parents were, the girl only replied that she knew nothing. A woman who was standing nearby and knew the situation said that this child lived on the street. She appeared there suddenly and tried to find the parents, but nothing came of it. Apart from her name, Alina knew nothing, so no one knew what to do, because such a gem shouldn't just disappear. However, then the Marquis appeared, who decided to adopt her. He told the girl that from that day on, she was now his daughter. He talked about how he could give her everything she wanted, and that everyone should love and appreciate her. But in exchange, Ishmael demanded that she become a soul caster who could represent their family. Because the girl was often hungry and had nowhere to live, she, without thinking about all this, simply blindly accepted this offer. At first, she believed that she had received a new life full of opportunities. However, when Alina could not see souls, her father punished her very strictly and cruelly. Since the girl could not prove her importance, the Marquise paid her in kind. And everyone thought the same, so no one tried to stop him from beating her because he did not get what he wanted. The servants around just looked and watched all this, and again Alina was at fault, and a knife flew straight into her face, which made a big scratch on her cheek. Then she couldn't stand it and stood up from her seat. Her father told her to stop right away. Her brother tried to grab her hand, but it was all useless. Alina ran out into the street and ran to her only place where she could be alone, a beautiful glass garden, which was next to the estate. Running inside, she began to cry very loudly. And then she suddenly heard someone's voice speaking in a foreign language. This voice turned to Alina and asked why there was blood on her face, and also asked how this happened. Alina replied that she was fine, and also said that he was there, and that she was very pleased that he was worried about her and was so kind. Of course, the girl could not see souls, but she always heard them around her, and this helped her in difficult situations. This spirit did not understand how it was possible to do this to such a beautiful girl like her, because she had such a beautiful face, and the scratch ruined everything. Alina was already accustomed to this, but then the spirit asked if she could tell the Marquise that she could hear souls, because he believed that in that case the man might not punish her anymore. But Alina had no intention of making this man happy, and besides, there was no benefit in her hearing them. Alina needed to be a spellcaster, and for that she had to see them. Of course, she was very sad about the fact that she might never see them, and because of this, she could live her whole life in torment. Then the girl burst into tears and said that if this really had to continue, she would rather die. But at that moment, a beautiful girl with red hair came out of the bushes, and with a smile on her face, she said that she was finally able to find her real self. Alina and the spirit she was talking to immediately became wary. They didn't know who she was or how she appeared so suddenly. But at that moment, the woman took out a small fireball and said that first, they needed to get rid of all the strangers. The spirit named Aprit began to gradually subside and soon disappeared completely. The girl immediately jumped to her feet. She looked at the stranger and screamed loudly, asking what she had done to him. But the stranger explained that she didn't have to worry, because she had just sent him to another place for a short time. He was supposed to return soon. Alina then realized that this girl in front of her was a spirit because she had a transparent body. And since she could also control other souls, she was unusual. The woman immediately said that the girls did not need to be afraid of her because she did not intend to cause them any harm. Alina, of course, could not just believe her, so the stranger decided to prove it. She touched her wound, and after some time, she simply disappeared. The girl looked at the woman in surprise, who told her to call her Marie and asked how she made her wound disappear. Marie did not explain this to her, but Alina thought for a while and immediately recognized this woman. It was Maria Stella, the pianist. She once ruled the Magic Kingdom and was the mastermind behind all the darkness that nearly destroyed the kingdom. Because of this, Marie received the status of a terrible villain, but she was also the most powerful spellcaster in the entire world. The woman with a smile on her face said correctly, "I am exactly the Marie you think of, and you are the past me." Alina did not understand how this was possible, because if it was true, then she was the most sorceress in the world, but the girl herself was very insignificant. Of course, the woman was outraged by the way she spoke about herself and replied that she was not at all insignificant. She had incredible power that needed to be properly revealed. But the girl with tears in her eyes began to remember everything that other people had said and told Mara that she was not a soul caster at all, as everyone thought. But the woman said in a gentle voice that even if they had different essences, their souls were still closely connected. Maria immediately said that her magical abilities manifested themselves when she was 16, and Alina said that she began to hear souls on her birthday. The girl still didn't believe it. She said that it could just be a coincidence, because she could only hear the showers, but she still hadn't seen them. Then Marie touched her forehead and told the girl not to be surprised, because at first it might tingle a little and the sensation would not be pleasant, but soon she would get used to it. After this, Alina opened her eyes and saw the very spirits that she so longed to see. And it really was like that. There were little fairies all around on the leaves of the trees and on the flowers, and she really could now see those very spirits with whom she had been communicating all the time. Then Marie asked if the girl believed her now. Alina was incredibly happy and said that now she believed her. The woman then offered her a contract. Marie was going to make her the best spellcaster on that continent, but she had a condition. She wanted Alina to destroy the Melcorado and reveal the whole truth about her death. Of course, Alina could not believe that she was offered to do this, because the very essence of this world and the highest relic that was kept in the Academy of High Spirit Casters was Melcorado. The girl did not understand why it was necessary to choose such an impossible task, and also wondered if this really meant that the history books did not tell the whole truth about her death. Maria said that she couldn't tell her everything in more detail, but Mar said that as soon as you destroy the Melcorado, everything will naturally start to improve. Alina was faced with a difficult choice. She believed that fulfilling the girl's request was like getting a star from the sky. But if she did not agree to this deal, then she would have to return to the Marquise. She was aware of the fact that she could die at the hands of this man at any moment if he became very angry. But even if he hadn't done this, Alina was on the verge of shortening her own life. At that moment, she had only two choices in front of her, the worst and the easiest, so she had to choose. Marie then, seeing the doubt in her eyes, took her hand and told the girl to perceive this not as a contract, but as a request. But when Alina looked closely at her red hair and clear eyes, she remembered that she had seen this girl in her dream more than once. Then, she became very interested in what had made the girl so desperate in her dream, and now she really wanted to help Mara find out the truth and show it to people. So she agreed to sign a contract with her. The girl then suddenly hugged her and told Alina to never forget this day. From that moment on, she was no longer alone. As soon as the girl heard these words, tears immediately came to her eyes. She could not believe that it was true. The curse that had tormented her for a month finally came to her in the form of a savior. While they were hugging, Alina suddenly heard a scream from the street, and she asked Marie if she could leave for a while and then come back. The girl immediately explained to her that no one else could see her except herself, so she shouldn't worry. And then Gabriel ran into this greenhouse. He said that he had been looking for her everywhere, and in the end, she had been there all this time. He said that he had been very worried and therefore was angry. He told them to go back quickly because her father was looking for her everywhere. And he also said that she needed to apologize to him so that things wouldn't get worse. But Alina refused. She said that she wanted to end it all and was not going to go anywhere. The guy was surprised. He asked what was happening to her. She was completely unlike herself, and this behavior really puzzled him. But Alina asked why he had been doing this to her all this time. When the guy didn't understand what she was talking about, she asked Gabriel to stop this terrible acting. She knew that he was an observer who reported to the Marquise every night about changes in her spiritual power. He used the girl as a shield to protect himself from his father's violence. And this was indeed true many years ago. When Alina was first brought to the estate, he immediately treated her well. When Gabriel extended his hand forward, she saw large bruises under his sleeve, which meant that the boy had been bullied. Of course, it took her some time to realize where exactly these wounds all over her body came from, because they were also on her throat. Once Alina even witnessed one of her father's beatings. He scolded the boy for treating her incorrectly and calling her someone other than his sister. He told Gabriel that this child should have become a great sorcerer in his place and brought glory to their family. But the boy was not capable of anything. One day, Alina herself became a victim on the part of the Marquise, and then she figured out what was going on, because on that day when she was beaten for the first time, no one even raised a hand against Gabriel. The guy didn't even deny it. He simply asked her to think about her existence. If she gave up now, there would definitely be no place in the world where she would be accepted. He said that her place was in the Marquise's estate, so she needed to quickly accept her fate and come to terms with it. Alina decided to completely change her thinking and was not going to live her old life, so she did not go to the marquis and apologize. She told Gabriel that his sweet, obedient little sister was no longer there, so she wanted him to just disappear from her life. At that moment, Marie came up to her. She suddenly used her abilities and poured water on him. The guy couldn't even stand on his feet. The woman explained that with people like him, you need to use words, not words. They didn't understand any other way. Gabriel was shocked and didn't think that she could use spiritual power, and so he just sat on the ground and looked at his sister in horror. But in fact, from the moment Alina made a contract with the introductory spirit, she was also endowed with the power to use this power. Around Alina, one could see small waves of water that surrounded her. The girl simply washed Gabriel out of the greenhouse and led him into the estate. When the Duke saw water on the ground, he was immediately very surprised. But after that, he saw Alina enter the room. Ismael was very happy because this meant that she had finally become a sorceress. Extending his hand forward, the man said that he knew she would make it someday and asked her to come to him. But Alina refused. She asked him to exclude her from his family because she was no longer going to indulge him. Ismael laughed a little and became very serious. He said, "We divided you so much, and you, ungrateful one, decided to leave your family." He used his magical abilities, which involved using fire, and he was going to make sure that she would never be able to say such words again. At first, Alina did not expect such a fiery blow, but she reacted in time and extinguished the fire with her water. The man was very surprised, but he was not at a loss, and also said that he had forgotten a little what level of spiritual power she had. However, Ismael still believed that he had nothing to fear, since she had only just become a spellcaster. This meant that she could not defeat him. In fact, he used black magic, which was forbidden in controlling spirits. Marie, who came to the girl's aid, immediately told her about this, and then a strong fire began to appear around them, and Alina saw the spirit of this very fire. However, Alina, with the help of her power, made a sword. She defeated this spirit and was already standing in front of the Duke, holding the weapon near his throat. The man was scared, but he continued to yell at her and said that everything would definitely not end like that, and he was not going to leave it that easily. Of course, Alina had no good feelings towards this man, so she said that she was going to take revenge on him for all those times he had hurt her incredibly. However, just as she was about to strike, the sea suddenly grabbed her hands and said that it would be best to stop and just leave. She explained that she did not want to see how her soul suffered, but Alina asked the woman to let her go, because she did not even have a place where she could go. However, the enchantress said that she apparently completely forgot about their contract. She had something she had to do, which meant that she had a place where she could go. When she covered Alina's face with her hand, she held it in front of her eyes for a while, then removed it, and they found themselves in a completely different place. This was the main square of the country, and a little further was the Checkmill Academy, where the girl was supposed to go. In fact, among the 3 academies that existed in the kingdom, only the best spellcasters could pass the qualification exam for this highest-level academy in the kingdom. And it was there that the thing was located that Alina was supposed to take and destroy. Maria explained that the girl had to pass the entrance exam to this academy in order to carry out her plan. But the woman, seeing the excitement on her face, said that she shouldn't have worried, because she definitely had to pass this exam, and even with ease. Alina looked at her in surprise and asked why she believed in it so much, and Maria explained that it was all because the girl was her reincarnation. And this means that the reincarnation of such a great witch as she could definitely not fail this easy exam at the academy. Alina had already begun to believe in her abilities, but in order to pass this exam, she needed money, and she didn't have even a penny. But Marie suddenly snapped her fingers, and they were transported to a local bank. The woman said that it was very good that in her past life she was incredibly rich. As soon as Alina entered inside, she saw many small souls that were working inside the room. This amazed her, because it was the first time she had seen so many souls at once, and Marie explained that they had only 4 attributes. Each attribute could be recreated in quantities close to hundreds or even tens of thousands. Then she suddenly looked to the side and saw a small spirit, with whom the man was familiar. Immediately seeing the lady, he said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and also asked what business she had come for. Marie asked him to get the documents for the exam at the academy from her safe, as well as the caster's bank card. The man took the key she handed over and asked why the creator of the academy needed to take an exam to enter it. Alina, upon hearing this, one woman immediately screamed and asked why she didn't say that she was the creator of this greatest academy. But the woman just smiled and said that she was even more outstanding than she could have ever imagined. Then answered the spirit's question. Marie explained that it was not she who took this exam at the academy, but the child who stood next to her. The man gave her what the woman asked for, and also wished good luck to the little reincarnation of the witch, because the exam this year should be more difficult than all the previous times. After that, Alina went directly to the academy, and she had a special number. As soon as it was called, the girl was simply in a stupor. She was very afraid of this moment. Alina immediately asked if Marie really wasn't going to go with her, and the woman explained that she needed to rest, because having reached her location, she had to use a huge amount of strength. Her body gradually began to dissolve into the air. And the woman, having calmed Alina, said that very soon they were supposed to meet me again. Marie also asked Alina to see and learn a lot of new things, and also try to find herself in this place. After some time, the woman simply dissolved, and only a few reflections remained of her that flew around Alina. However, the girl quickly came to her senses, because now she was starting to live independently, and she needed to be very responsible for her life. As soon as Alina approached the man who was standing at the entrance to the examination room, he asked to shake hands before starting. Alina did not object, and when she did this, her spiritual strength was incredible. Then the man congratulated her on passing the first stage of the exam. Then the girl went inside and did not understand why everything was so simple. She thought that in this place it should have been difficult even to breathe because the airflow was limited. One of the little fairies immediately flew up to her and asked who she was, and also why she had passed the most difficult second stage of the exam so easily. Alina said that she was told that this year was supposed to be the most difficult exam, but it turned out to be easier than she thought. How the girl thought about the fact that this could be connected with her wonderful, outstanding ability. Then she came to a small passage. Everything was dark there. At the end of this corridor, there should have been a place for the last stage of the exam. And then suddenly, Alina felt very cold. But at that moment, a man came up to her and, throwing his jacket over her shoulders, asked if it was true that they had never thought about heaters in this place. Alina laughed, but still asked who he was. The man was genuinely surprised that she understood what he was saying. It was a dark-haired, blue-eyed guy. His name was Dennis. He said that she was quite an interesting first-year student, and also replied that he was responsible for the third oral stage of the exam. Then they started walking forward together, and the girl asked how long it was until the exam place. Dennis smiled happily and said that they had almost arrived and did not stay long. But then suddenly, Alina stopped. She said that she was not going to go any further because he was acting strangely. His voice sounded as if it were human, but in fact it was not. The guy kept saying that they were supposed to come soon, but that never happened, so she asked him to show proof that he was really the examiner. Dennis asked her forgiveness for misleading her. He explained that he had actually planned to finish earlier, but it was just the first time he saw a person like her who understood him and therefore was impressed. Smiling, he said that she had tried very hard and done well, so the final stage of the exam was passed. It consisted of raising the examiner's speech, altered by spiritual power, after which he snapped his fingers and asked if his voice sounded normal. Alina immediately felt a big change. Then he handed her a small pendant and congratulated her on getting the highest score on the exam. Immediately after this, the girl was escorted to a single room in the academy dormitory. She immediately lay down on the bed because she was very tired. She looked at this brooch, which was very beautiful, but she thought that it was too shiny for someone who had just entered. Every time Alina remembered that conversation with the guy, she was constantly embarrassed and thought that she had crossed the line a little. Then the girl suddenly noticed a small piece of paper on the bedside table. It was an invitation to a freshman banquet. It said that she should wear a uniform and a badge. Alina immediately looked at the time and saw that she had less than 10 minutes left. She thought that if she started getting ready now, she would definitely be late, and she really wanted Undine, the spirit that owned the water, to help her. Alina decided to try her luck and asked if it was still there. A small blue fairy appeared right in front of her and asked if the girl had called her. Alina immediately asked for her request, and after some time everything was ready. She was dressed in a beautiful uniform with a badge, as well as with a very beautiful and delicate hairstyle. She was already heading to the place where this celebration was supposed to take place, and with her was the spirit, which only she and Marie could see. But before entering the hall, a man stopped her at the entrance and asked her to show her freshman badge. Alina immediately took it out and showed it to the man, who was incredibly surprised to see it, because he knew what this particular icon meant. He said that it was a water elemental badge, and that there was no way a first year could get something like that. Alina was indignant. She said, "I received this badge from the examiner upon successful completion of the exam, so I don't understand what you're talking about." The man, of course, did not believe her. He grabbed her hand and said that first he had to check everything, and also asked her to follow him. But at that moment, a man's voice was heard. It was an adult man who was the president of the academy. His name was Nathan, and he asked the man to stop holding her hand. The guy explained that he didn't let her in because he didn't know where she could have gotten the water spell icon from, so he decided to find out everything. Nathan calmly asked the girl where she got this badge. Alina immediately explained everything. Then the man told the guy that it was a student and that she had passed the exam with the highest score this year, so he asked the guy to just let her through without any unnecessary comments. When Alina came to this celebration, she was not so happy while everyone was dancing and talking to each other. She just sat alone at the banquet table. The girls really wanted to just go back to the dorm and rest, because it had been a truly crazy day. However, at that moment, she suddenly looked up and saw that sitting opposite her was Dennis, whom she had met at the exam. She didn't understand why he treated her like that, changed the exam, and even gave her this badge, which only caused her more problems. But as soon as Dennis met the girl's gaze, he began to smile, and she immediately looked away from him because it made her uncomfortable. Then he approached the guy and asked Alina if it was true that she had gotten the highest score on the exam. The girl said that this was exactly it, and the man said that he was pleased to meet her and gave his name. His name was Eugene. It was a tall, dark-haired guy with black eyes. Alina said that she was also pleased to meet him. However, Eugene suddenly said that, as expected from the best, she was different from the others and had already managed to sign a contract with the Undine. As soon as Alina heard this, she was amazed. She did not understand how the guy could even see this spirit, because it was believed that no one could see him except her and Maria. However, their conversation was interrupted by the organizer, who said that the freshmen's banquet had already begun, and also asked the best freshman, Alina, to come up to the podium. Alina suggested that they talk to Eugene when the banquet was over, since she still had a lot of questions. But at that moment, she had to go. However, when she returned, he was no longer there. Undine explained to her that only Marie and someone who had a power similar to hers could see her. And this meant that this person had the same strength, and the line, "I didn't like it because it meant that an additional headache appeared." She decided to find this guy after finishing her classes, which she immediately went to the next morning. The first thing the girl decided to do was to look into the library, and as soon as she saw all these huge shelves with books, she was amazed. Of course, she expected that the best academy in the empire should have a large library, but she didn't think that it could be so large-scale. Alina walked through several shelves and noticed that there was no worker there, so she decided to find books for the lesson herself. The girl approached the necessary shelf and immediately reached for the book. It was very difficult for her to get it because it was located very high up. And at that moment, that same Denise suddenly approached her. He helped her get the book, and when she saw him, she immediately asked why he had come. The guy asked her for forgiveness because he heard that she had problems because of that brooch, so he came to see her. The guy explained that he didn't do it out of bad intentions. He just wanted her to become a water spellcaster, so that's why he gave it to her. Before leaving, Dennis asked her not to think badly of him, and he also hoped that there would be no understanding between them. Because he had observed her outstanding abilities from the beginning, he wanted to take care of her, but he rushed things a bit and was unable to protect her enough. He asked her for forgiveness with you. Alina was a little embarrassed and said that it was not necessary to find her and apologize because nothing serious happened. It was just a trifle. But the guy said that it had to be done in order to resolve this misunderstanding, and he wanted to do it because he didn't want her to hate him. In fact, from the moment Alina entered the Marquise's house, for the first time, a man came to her and sincerely apologized to her because he truly felt guilty. For a moment, it even seemed to her as if she were in a dream, and tears appeared in her eyes. Dennis was very surprised and asked if he had upset her in some way, but Alina explained that she was just glad to hear it, after which they parted ways and went to class. Meanwhile, Gabriel was in the castle with his father and was beaten again because the man was angry with him because he still couldn't find the girl. He talked about how the guy was a disgrace to their family, and that's why he didn't want to see him. And when Gabriel left the room, he decided that he had to take revenge on Alina for betraying him. However, when the maid ran up to him and handed him a letter about Alina's admission to the academy, he was amazed. The guy couldn't believe that she could just run away there, so he decided to take certain measures to return her to his father. Alina went to classes with a professor and a spellcaster of water elements, and this professor was, in fact, Dennis. The girl looked at him, not taking her eyes off, when suddenly Eugene, who sat down next to her, turned to her and asked if she already liked the professor's face so much. Smiling, he asked if the girl had already fallen in love with him. Of course, Alina said that she had not fallen in love at all. The guy did not argue and replied that in fact, there was nothing strange about it, and she did not have to be embarrassed. This professor was very popular among the female students, and it was obvious he had a gentle manner of speech and a kind face, and he also held the title of the youngest professor in the history of the entire academy. The guy suddenly noticed again that she was staring at the teacher, and pouring water on her, said that it would be better for her to concentrate on the lesson itself. Eugene explained that even if she had done better on the exams, she still had to hold on to that place, because he could easily overtake her. When Alina asked why he was pestering her, the guy explained that he wasn't making fun of her at all. He just wanted to warn her that she should have just hidden her Undine. When she asked how he was able to see her at all, Eugene explained that it was all because he also had a contract with a soul. He smiled and asked if she really didn't know something. Liko, those spellcasters who have already made a contract with a soul can see the souls of others bound by the contract. However, Alina still believed that this reason was not enough to explain everything. Only the one who had poppies could see her Undine, and this guy saw her. And besides, a few minutes ago she saw a small blue light that came from his hands and eyes. In fact, she read about it. If you use magic and soul power together, there will always be a residual image of magic power according to the attribute of the spirit. Therefore, Alina guessed that Eugene had a water attribute that was connected to the blue glow. After a short silence, the guy asked if she had any other questions. She could ask whatever she wanted, because he could answer everything. However, at that moment, Alina decided to test her theory. She suddenly grabbed the guy by the hair and pulled him down, but soon she was thrown back a little. Of course, he started to get indignant and asked what she had done. But Alina said that he had just confirmed her theory. He had a virtual field. She explained that a virtual field is a space that can only be created with magic, and asked how he could use it. In fact, at one time, the world was moving towards using a t-shirt. However, Maria Stella, who was the leading person of that time, was soon beheaded. After the Age of Souls began, the magical power was sealed so that no one could use it. Eugene was amazed and wondered if she had deliberately broken his concentration in order to destroy the field he had made. The girl agreed and said that she had a lot of knowledge and information, so it was not difficult for her to understand that he used magic specifically. This made him feel a little uncomfortable, but Alina assured him that she wasn't going to tell anyone because she wasn't that kind of person. However, at that moment, their conversation was interrupted by Dennis, who said that this was the end of their first lesson. He also warned the students that they had to check their attribute in the next lesson, so they couldn't be late for classes. Everyone immediately began to disperse, but Eugene approached the deer and said that he had one piece of advice for her. He asked if she knew about the moonstone. It was the tool that was supposed to be used to test their attributes in the next lesson. In fact, with the help of this instrument, one could even contact the spirit world. So he said that she had better be careful, because the moonstone could even absorb her, so she had to be very careful. Alina was of course surprised and asked what he meant, because she didn't expect to hear something like that. Now Eugene explained that she had too much magic power, so the moonstone would want to absorb her, because it doesn't like those who are stronger than it. Alina didn't understand how she could be stronger than the moonstone, but the guy replied that no one knew, but he believed that this time it was really possible. The girl thought that he was so friendly with her because she could tell his secret, but the guy denied this and said that he was really worried about her. She advised him to be careful and take care of himself. The guy thought that she was overdoing it because he was just trying to take care of her, but Alina said that she didn't ask him to do this. Of course, Eugene understood that Alina could not believe him, but he could not utter a single word in his defense, so for some time they just stood and looked at each other. He asked her for forgiveness and said that he had indeed been hasty, and he also understood perfectly well why she had acted this way, given her situation with the Marcus. When Alina asked how he even found out about this, the guy explained that rumors spread quickly and that this had been talked about since the freshman's banquet. He remained in his seat and said that in any case, she should have been more careful. He tossed her a small coin and told her that she had been enchanted with good luck magic that might help her a little against the moonstone. But he was sure that she could cope even without it. After that, they went their separate ways for the next lessons. At that moment, Alina decided to break the wall inside herself because he trusted her, and she decided that it would be right to trust him in return. So before the guy left, she apologized to him for being rude as well. She thanked him for worrying about her and said that she would definitely be careful, but she still didn't understand why he helped him to be gay. On his part, it would have been better to put a spoke in her wheel and prevent her from becoming the best. Then Eugene sighed heavily and said that it could be called a feeling of kinship. The girl did not pay much attention to it. However, she decided that he also had his own reasons for this, so she decided not to ask any more questions. When the next day a new lesson came, as promised, Dennis brought the moonstone in order to conduct his test. He took out a piece of paper and suggested that they start in the order that was written on his paper, that is, in the list of students. At that moment, Alina remembered a moment from childhood when she told Gabriel that he also passed the moonstone test. The stepbrother said that his attribute was fire, and also said that he and his father really hoped that when she grew up, her attribute would also be fire. When Alina asked why, the guy explained that it was because in their family, almost every attribute had fire, and she was also part of their family, so it would be better for her not to stand out. It was for this reason that Alina hated fire to death. At that moment, something strange happened. All the students around parted, and the moonstone suddenly began to emit light in the direction of the girl. This went on for some time, and no one understood how it happened or what happened. But Denny suddenly turned to everyone and said that the moonstone had its own list, so he wanted to start with the student Alina. The girl immediately came up and touched the stone, but Dennis put his hand on top of hers and said that it might be a little more difficult for her. But looking straight into her eyes, he said that he was absolutely sure that she would cope with it perfectly. At that moment, Alina began to hear many voices that wished her death, and also said that she was a fake. The girl closed her eyes and screamed loudly for them to calm down and stop saying this. Immediately after that, she moved to a completely different place, somewhere beyond the boundaries of space and time. Then she heard someone's voice behind her. This voice belonged to a little girl who said that she always wanted to meet Alina, and as soon as she turned around to see who it was, she realized that it was Elia, the girl who said that she was the one who died for her. In fact, even when Alina lived in the Marquis estate, every night Gabriel came into her room, stroked her hair, and muttered her name. At first she thought she was wrong, but in the end it all proved that due to her resemblance to the real daughter of the Count, who died quite gladly, she was just a fake that was worthy of use. They had the same white hair, purple eyes, and looked very similar to Gabrielle. As soon as the girl saw Ilya, she was absolutely sure that she was the Count's real daughter, but she did not understand why she suddenly appeared in front of her. And then suddenly, she asked what the girl meant when she said that she died for her. Ilya explained that her life was connected with Alina's fate, and she died so early, so she sincerely hated her. The girl began to come closer, saying that she knew perfectly well that she hated her too. However, Alina did not answer. She just looked at her, not knowing what to even say. In fact, Elia realized that she blamed herself for all the humiliation she experienced at home. As much as Alina didn't want to admit it, however, as soon as she met this girl, she immediately realized that it was really true. A child who lost his life at such an early age was a relic of the past that sacrificed her future. So she told the girl that all this was so. But Elia got one thing wrong. Because Alina didn't hate her, she certainly blamed her, but she simply wanted to shift the responsibility for the fact that she was adopted, and this was the easiest thing to do. But Alina knew that it was not her fault, so she could not blame her anymore. She even wanted to apologize to her, saying that she understood and accepted her guilt. She hugged the little girl and began to ask for forgiveness. Elia then asked if she was really sincere in her words. Alina stood up and said that since it was so, she would certainly hate her for the rest of her life, but she hated her essence and fate, so she agreed to forgive. Immediately after this, when Alina opened her eyes, she found herself in a completely different place and was very surprised. The girl did not understand how she ended up in that place, and also assumed that she most likely simply succumbed to the ore stone. But when she walked a little forward, you saw 4 spirits of the attribute elements who were talking to each other, deciding what to do. In fact, Alina saw them together for the first time and noticed that they were very beautiful, but also incredibly noisy. The girl came closer to them and greeted her, and the spirit of the earth, Nain, immediately turned to her and greeted Alina. After him, the spirit of the windsills turned and said this for the first time in which time, "The moonstone puts you to the test, but you did well." The spirit of fire said that it was not surprising, since she was a reincarnation. And the water spirit Undine, with whom the girl was already familiar, smiled and said that they were proud of her. The girl thanked them all and also asked if she could now recognize her element. However, they said that she didn't need it because she was already special because she existed. So they asked if she would like to make a contract with them. Alina couldn't believe it and asked if this was really possible. The wind spirit said that of course it was, but it was quite difficult to create such a connection, and she could lose her mind or leave some consequences. But after a few days, everything would definitely return to normal, so she shouldn't worry. Alina began to refuse. She said that it was too burdensome to sign a contract with all of them, and that just one would be enough for her. Alina realized that her fate was even harder than she could have imagined, and the spirits told her that she had better not miss this wonderful chance. After some time of reflection, the girl agreed to sign a contract with them all, but she had one condition. She was going to introduce herself to the academy, whoever she chose as her element. The spirits did not object, but only asked who she was going to choose, because it was really interesting. After some time, Dennis woke Alina up, and she immediately asked what was happening, because she had lost consciousness and could not orient herself in space normally. The guy explained that she had lost consciousness, but now everything was back to normal. As soon as Alina noticed that she was sitting in the man's arms, she immediately jumped up. However, because she was still too weak, she almost fell. The man grabbed her and told her to be careful, because she could get injured. In fact, Alina was simply very surprised when she saw his face very close, and that is why she felt uncomfortable and wanted to leave as soon as possible. When she looked around, you immediately asked why there was no one in the room. The guy explained that the test had simply already been finished and everyone had left. And since she was the only one who still hadn't come to her senses, he decided to stay. But it took longer than he thought, so he was a little worried. But in any case, Dennis was glad that she returned to them unharmed. He offered to take her to her room and told her to take a rest from her studies, because she definitely wouldn't be able to withstand even more stress. Alina then stopped him and thanked him for waiting, and also said that in return, she would like to show him her abilities first. Alina believed that the beginning and end of all life was in the hands of the goddess of water, and that is why she chose her as an indicator of her strength in the academy. So the girl smiled and said that from that moment on, she had the same element as he did. When the next day came and Alina met with Eugene, he looked a little disappointed because she had been unconscious for a long time, and in the end, she just had the element of water. He already thought at that moment that she could have been swallowed by the stone, but he was still happy that she remained alive. Smiling happily, Alina thanked him and also reminded him that he gave her a lucky coin, so everything worked out. Then, Alina suddenly noticed a badge on his tie that was the same as hers, which meant that they both chose water, and also that they now saw each other more often. By that time, the dorm assignments had already ended, and all students with water spirits were asked to go to their dorm. Alina was a little surprised by this, but when she looked to the side and saw Dennis, she became wary because his expression became very cold and distant. But she assumed that she was simply used to seeing his friendly face, so when he talked to other people, he was very serious, and this was unusual for her. When Eugene suddenly noticed how hard the girl was looking at the lady who was standing next to Dennis, and said that it was Shannon Jennett. In fact, this girl was the only daughter of Duke Jennett, a famous enemy of the Sanyo family. She had beautiful red hair, as well as delightful golden eyes. Every time the Marquise went out into the social world, he was very angry that Alina had not yet become a spellcaster, and he could not wipe the Duke of Janatu's nose. Alina really hoped that she would not have this girl as a roommate in the dorm, but Eugene upset her because she was placed with this lady. As it turned out, Shannon was even more angry. She didn't understand how she could live in the same room with Alina, and besides, she thought it was strange that they also had the same element. When she entered the room, she suddenly saw an angry expression on the girl's face, who immediately asked if she shouldn't have chosen fire, like her entire family. Alina was amazed, she said. "You are a girl from a noble family, but why do you even know the basics of etiquette and treat me like this?" They argued for a while, and Shannon said, "You, an orphan without roots, were brought into the family as a secret weapon. Did you really think that no one in this place would know about it?" Alina completely ignored all her phrases, and soon she got tired of it too. So she simply decided to leave and take a little walk to breathe out. Alina also said that very soon she had to stop being a part of that family, so she is no longer Alina with Senyu, but simply Alina. The girl did not understand what she meant, but then the girl explained that she would rather be a rootless orphan than stay in that terrible family. Shannon then said that since she was her rival, she would always remain hers, so the girl shouldn't even think that she would easily give up just because she abandoned her family. In fact, Alina really thought that she had planned to apologize, but in the end, she turned out to be very proud, as expected from the heiress of the Jennett family. The girl didn't answer and went out the door, thinking that it was very difficult and that in order to fulfill Maria's request, she needed to pull herself together and come up with a plan. In fact, she went out to try to look for where Melquardo might be, but she didn't even know where to start. Of course, she couldn't walk around every corner of the huge academy on her own, and besides, such a relic would most likely be kept in a secret place where a first-year student would definitely not be able to get into. She assumed that one of the souls might know, so she turned to the Undine and said that she would like to ask something. The water spirit immediately appeared next to her and said that she would like to know where the Melquardo was hidden. The spirit immediately told her that there was no need to rush so much, because this relic was much stronger than the girl thought, and she would not be able to cope with everything so easily. She even said that it would probably be incredibly difficult for her to even look at it, let alone destroy it. Therefore, the girl said that it was best for Alina to focus on learning and developing. When everything had already been decided, suddenly another spirit named Selv appeared and said that she could take a look at him with one eye only if she was careful. She said that they were very upset by the fact that she was constantly calling for the Undine, and she would like other spirits to help her as well, but they just sat on the sidelines. Alina asked for forgiveness and said that she was the first to sign a contract with Undine and had managed to get used to her, so it only took a little time for her to get used to everyone. At that moment, a couple more spirits appeared, with whom Alina signed a contract and said that if they felt more comfortable, then they could all help her together. She was definitely not against it and missed them. Then Self said that if Alina wanted, she could use her power to transport her to where Melquardo was, but she didn't think it would be bad if she just looked at him for a while, but didn't touch him. Of course, the girl did not object, and then, having touched the spirit, she became completely transparent so that no one could see her. In fact, this was the peculiarity of the wind. The spirit of water doubted it very much and asked if everything would be okay, because it could be incredibly dangerous. But Alina calmed her down and said that she only wanted to take a quick look and then come back right away, so everything was fine. The wind spirit said that no other spirits could get there, So Alina had to go through this journey alone, but they did not wish her luck, and soon the woman moved her there. When Alina opened her eyes the next time, she found herself right in front of Melcardo. He exuded simply incredible power, much more than she had even read about in books. It was very powerful and amazing. Of course, this made Alina feel bad. She only took a small breath of air while being near this relic, and already began to choke from the incredible power. She realized that it was very dangerous to stay there, so she opened the doors and began to run away from there because she did not want to die just after seeing this relic. She knew that the idea was too big, and she believed that she could do anything based on her exam grades alone. But in the end, it turned out that she needed a lot more practice. Alina understood that she needed to continue listening to Maria and the Undine because she still lacked many qualities to do at least something, so she had to study well at the academy and train her abilities. First, she had to get back to the dorm before it was too late, and she got into trouble. Then she turned to the power of the sylph and asked if Leda could transport her back to the dorm. But right in front of the door, there was a sign that said, "I hope to see you at the end of your conditions." Seeing this, the girl was very surprised. She did not understand what it meant, but soon moved to some other place that was definitely not a hostel. She understood that she needed to find a way out as soon as possible, and while no one noticed her, she was still alarmed by the words she saw. Alina did not understand what was meant, but then suddenly a male voice, which belonged to Dennis, addressed her and called the girl. The guy immediately came closer to her and said that the curfew in the hostel had already passed, so he did not understand what she was doing in the corridors. Dennis also replied that this place was located very deep in the building. It was carefully guarded and no one could get into this place, but somehow Alina got in, so he needed to know how. The girl decided to come up with an excuse that she was just a little lost, but the guy insisted on his own and asked her to tell him the truth because he saw that it was a lie. Alina asked him for forgiveness, but said that she could not answer him this question. Dennis's voice became very serious, and he said, "I am the professor responsible for your department and responsible for this area. So why are you still not in the dorm during the curfew, and how did you get to this place?" In the end, he said that since she was not going to answer him, he had to assign her a punishment accordingly, since such were the rules. Well, Alina didn't resist. She said that even when punished, she couldn't answer him, so she just went ahead and asked for forgiveness for it. But Dennis suddenly grabbed her by the hand and led her around the corner, after which he closed his mouth when she tried to say something. The guy whispered that she should be quiet because someone was walking nearby. And then indeed, one of the knights who passed by them did not even stop, because he did not notice them. He went about his business. After the steps faded away, Dennis let her go and said that everything was okay now. And Alina suddenly started talking to him. She said that it was all strange. He said that the punishment would be according to the academy's discipline regulations, but for some reason he suddenly helped her hide. She did not understand why he contradicted himself in this way, and therefore wanted to find out. Dennis explained that he said those words as a professor responsible for the students, but since she was Alina, he decided to help her a little. The girl was shocked to hear this and asked what he meant, but the guy did not repeat himself and said that he had simply gone a little too far and asked for forgiveness if he had offended her. But Alina in turn also asked for forgiveness and said that she did not want to make his job more difficult. She should not have allowed everything to happen like this. But then suddenly, Dennis touched her badge and said that he was sure that she should have come here again, and then she could have used his power. So he assured her that she could ask for his help at any time. He would always be on her side. After that, he took his cape and threw it over the girl's shoulders so that she would not freeze. He also asked her not to go to such dangerous places on her own in the future. After that, Dennis said that it was already late, so he was going to walk her to the hostel so that nothing would happen. Well, Alina refused. She started to run away and said that she could get there herself, and also that they would see each other tomorrow. The girl herself was constantly wondering why Dennis treated her so kindly, and even somehow it was excessive in her opinion. But it had started with their very first meeting at the exam. And besides, this manner of speech was suspiciously familiar to her, but she could not remember what it was like. When she was near this guy, he caused her some strange feeling of discomfort, and she did not know whether she could trust him or whether he was just like Gabriel, pursuing his own goal in all this. When the next morning came, Alina had not slept well at all. On her way to class, she met Eugene, and he really noticed it. When he asked why she had such an exhausted face, the girl explained that she had talked to Shidan all night and had not been able to sleep. This surprised him very much, because he knew that they hated each other, but for some reason were able to get along so quickly. This surprised him. But at that moment, as they were walking, they suddenly heard loud cries for help, which came from somewhere below. The girl and I came closer and saw that many people began to choke from the water. Some guy who had a blindfold and green hair noticed Alina and Eugene and asked if it was true that they were also first-year students. But without waiting for an answer, he said that at first glance they looked stupid. So he was right. He also greeted them, saying that in front of them was Mr. Gracia. In fact, this man was one of the guardian fairies from ancient times who guarded the academy. He was also known as Neem, in which he would make fun of the new students every year, and this year was no exception. Alina asked if this really meant that everyone was now under the control of this nymph and were suffocating in the spring water. Eugene said that this was indeed the case. Gracia then turned to them and asked what they were talking about there, because they also should have joined their group in order not to be outcasts, and he used his magical abilities to immediately cast the same spell on them. But nothing happened, and they were absolutely fine. The guy was very surprised that his powers didn't work and immediately asked who they were. But without waiting for an answer, he told them not to waste his time and just leave. He assumed that they weren't first years, so he said that he needed to deal with the rest, and at that moment his powers increased and carried the girl up. The boy explained that they had to try the power of the Graxes on themselves in order to be considered full-fledged students at the academy. The girls who raised up were incredibly scared. She screamed very loudly and asked for help, but the man, smiling happily, said that apparently she was having fun, and also suggested that they have even more fun. After he snapped his fingers, the water that held her aloft evaporated, and the girl began to free fall. Alina, seeing this, immediately became very scared. She turned to the Undine and asked for help. The goddess of water immediately said that she had nothing to worry about and picked up the poor girl so that she would not break. Alina breathed a sigh of relief when she saw that everything had worked out, and then she heard the voice of that very Grax, who asked how she dared to interfere with him, and he said that in that case she should have taken the place of this girl, and after that he drowned her in the river, throwing her right from the second floor on which she was standing. Alina could not resist this. The strength was leaving her body, and she then closed her eyes. After opening them, she saw that everything was underwater. But to her great surprise, she could breathe calmly and stand. The Grax turned to her and said that, even in the water mixed with spiritual power, she was completely fine, and this surprised him. After that, he asked if you were the reincarnation of Maristella. Alina didn't answer this because she didn't know whether she could divulge this information. The guy said that she didn't know how to lie at all, so he knew everything anyway. He explained that he simply felt the same energy from her as from Marie, which is why he guessed. But now the girl confirmed his theory definitively. Alina then asked in surprise, did he really know Marie too? After all, she didn't think that was possible. However, the Graxi immediately said that of course she did not like him, but he never hated her. And all because she was a person with a warm heart. She loved and protected this world more than anyone else, and he was saddened by the fact that, in the end, she suffered a terrible fate. Alina suddenly interrupted him and asked if he really knew the truth about Marie's death. The man said that of course he knew, and very well. Then the girl asked him to tell her this truth, because she had the right to know. But Graxi decided to ask why she suddenly became so interested in this. Alina doubted for a while, but then said that it was because she agreed with his words. Many said that Maria was just an evil witch, but she had a very kind essence and soul. Therefore, she really wanted the man to tell her the truth, and she in turn would convey this to the world about Marie's death so that the girl would no longer be slandered. Then the man said that from that moment on, she needed to find the pieces. When she found them all, she would know the real truth, because then the truth would simply be revealed to her. Alina did not understand what he was talking about, but the man replied that this was all he could tell her, so he was not given more. After that, he said that he was very tired, so he asked her to leave and used his abilities to simply transport her back. The guy also wished her good luck. Alina thanked him, but at that moment, he suddenly picked her up again with his wave and made her fly into the air. Right next to the edge stood Dennis and Eugene. They were both very scared when they saw the girl, because they were afraid for her well-being and health. Graxi suddenly turned to Alina and told her to look at which of these two would be the master of the rotten tower or the heir of the empty constellation. He removed his wave, and Alina began to fall down. Fortunately, everything turned out well, and she was left with only a few scratches. Sometime later, Alina was already sitting in the dorm, and her roommate was bandaging her wound. The girl said that she just needed to sit still, because it was because of her that she fell into the water stream and got hurt. So she wanted to do at least this. But Alina resisted all the time. The girl also asked for forgiveness for what happened yesterday. She told Alina that she could not even think that the girl could turn out to be a good person, and because of this, she is ashamed that she judged only because her father told her about her family. But Alina smiled and said that everything was fine. She understood that no matter what her family did, there would always be gossip of a particularly bad nature. The girl also said that she was so good, and she thought so badly of her and therefore felt like a real idiot. But Alina calmed her down and said that this happens to everyone.